Ever wondered what it takes to pull off an unforgettable in-person event? Well, in this video, I'm gonna break down the exact 17 steps that I followed to create Sponsor Games, the first ever event to help creators learn how to make more money with brand partnerships. I'm gonna share every mistake I made, every lesson I learned, whether I made money or lost money, and the most important advice I'd give to someone wanting to launch their very own event one day. So the very first thing that you need to do is set a clear vision. Why does this event need to exist? I've been going to creator-focused conferences for over a decade, and the thing that always really frustrated me is like brand partnerships was like the #1 way in which my wife and I were making money, and there'd only ever be like maybe 1 or 2 talks about brand partnerships, and I would be thinking like, am I crazy here? Like, why isn't like half the talks about this? It's all about like getting more followers and getting more viewers and all that, and of course that's important, but that's not gonna pay the bills oftentimes, especially if you're not a YouTuber making money off AdSense, right? And so I always wanted an event like this to exist, but I just kept waiting and waiting and waiting, and no one ever made an event. And if they did make an event around this, it was always focused on the industry side. There'd be people from the platforms or from the brands, and they're, oh yeah, creators, you can come too, but it was always kind of an afterthought. And that always rubbed me the wrong way. And so I was like, okay, there's clearly a gap in the market here. Step number 2 is you have to determine your non-negotiables. I literally made a list of things that I refused to compromise on. I literally said, okay, what are all the things that I absolutely loathe about events? Number 1, food. Food always sucks at every event I've ever been to. So you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna ball out on food. I don't know what percentage of the budget it's gonna be, but it's gonna be 50%. I don't know, something crazy, because I want people to talk about, wow, this food is absolutely incredible. What's another non-negotiable for me? Well, I thought, look, I want control over the programming. I hate keynotes. I hate workshops. I hate panels. I always fall asleep. I always want to look at my phone. That sucks. I would always just look forward to like going into the hallway and like networking. What if the entire event felt like the hallway? How can I make that happen? Step number 3 is consider capping attendance. This one might be a bit controversial, but I actually think it's way easier to drive things like FOMO with ticket sales, figuring out a more accurate budget, helping you select venues. So with Sponsor Games, we started out in the planning phases saying 120. That was going to be our max. That was really helpful in terms of figuring out, okay, like what size venue are we thinking here? Because, do we need like a giant auditorium? Do we need like a hotel ballroom? Going back to the non-negotiables, I didn't want it to feel like a hotel ballroom. So man, if we capped attendance, that could mean that it unlocked cooler types of venues, like maybe a distillery that has cool like rustic vibes, or like it just like unlocked the creativity a lot more. Step number 4 is choose a strategic location. So for us, we wanted to have Sponsor Games in March, which means that, okay, like climate wise, in March, a lot of places in the US at least, it's still winter. There still might be snow, and we didn't want that vibe. And so for us, it was always like, okay, let's think about climate. What are the places that are still warm in March? So we started looking at things like Austin, Texas, and San Antonio, and Phoenix, and Scottsdale, and New Mexico, and things like that. And so I also wanted accessibility from both coasts, so both the East Coast and the West Coast of the US, and also just trying to understand like where is our audience located? Like if you're gonna be asking your community to fly out, it might be a good idea to do some sort of poll to be able to help you narrow down the location. Step number 5 is hire an experienced event planner if you can afford it. Oh my gosh, this was the best thing that I ever did. I gotta give a huge shout out to my event planner, Sarah Loretta. Honestly, not only has she run events before, but finding someone who truly understood the vision of what I was trying to bring to life with Sponsor Games was just, oh my God, I can't even describe how valuable that was. Sarah and I have done some work together before, so she understood, she had familiarity with my business. For example, going back to, the choosing a venue, she literally RFP'd, RFP means request for proposal, 42 different venues, meaning she like sent messages to all of them and saying, hey, we're interested, we want to have this event. Can you accommodate us in terms of the capacity and the fact that we want to bring in our own vendors and like all this stuff, helping coordinate signage and like the decor and like all the different things that we had to figure out, setting the budgets, all of that stuff. I had no idea what I was doing. And so I allocated quite a bit of the budget to Sarah to help me, because again, I'm also running my business day to day. I thought for a hot second there, like, hey, can like someone on my team actually manage this? And we like talked about it, and it was like, there's no way. We're already running on fumes trying to like, keep the business going. And so I did not subject my team to that. I was like, okay, I need to bring in someone, a third party to help shepherd this, or else it's not going to get done. Step number 6 is design engaging group dynamics. Do you know that feeling when you go to an event and you don't know anyone, and you go to the opening party and you get your drink and you're just like sitting there looking around, you're looking at your phone because it's super awkward, and you're like, oh my gosh, maybe I should just go back to the hotel room because I don't know anybody. I have had that experience. I've had that feeling so many times, and it sucks. And it makes the event, the very first experience that you have at the event, not so great. And so again, going back to the list of non-negotiables, I knew that feeling and I wanted to do the opposite of that. And so when we were structuring our event, we decided, okay, we are going to break people out into groups. So we basically curated who was going to be on each group by a bunch of different criteria. So for example, we asked people to submit a survey before the event, and we learned things like, what is their main platform focus? Are they a YouTuber? Are they a newsletter operator? Are they a social media creator, etc.? Were they coming with any friends? Because, you know, it'd be nice to experience the event if you're going with a friend. And so we used a lot of these criteria to create color-coded teams. So we had a few friends on their team, but we also, if it was a bunch of YouTubers, we paired those with someone who had a newsletter to kind of cross-pollinate and learn from each other and things like that. And so the moment that people got to the welcome party on the opening night, they all had these colored lanyards of the teams that we pre-selected. And it was so beautiful. We were standing at the door and we would like check people in and we'd be like, oh, we got someone from Team Red here. Let's go. Let me introduce you to the other people on Team Red. And so instantly everyone had an icebreaker. It was funny because like people didn't know what it meant to like be on a team quite yet, but still it was so perfect. It was like, okay, yeah, we're all on the team. You know, we're all on the same team. Let's go. We're going to be the winners and like all this stuff. And so, oh my gosh, it was just such a beautiful thing. And then carrying that same thing into the actual event itself, the groups were sat with each other. So all the tables were color coded, and there was a bunch of interaction that you had with your team, breakout groups and exercises and things like that during the event itself. And so like people got to know each other so well. They like fostered these connections, and now they're like friends outside. Like my favorite anecdote is a guy by the name of Larry and a coaching client of mine named Paul got to be super good friends, and they ended up meeting up and playing golf together outside of the event like a month later or something. So I just felt so touched and fulfilled, like I was able to be the nexus to encourage new relationships like that. It was just so brilliant. So if you can figure out a way to inject that type of dynamic into your event, it's golden. So step number 7 is to create a surprise and delight strategy. So basically like plan unexpected moments like impromptu prizes or maybe special recognition of certain attendees, VIP experiences, things like that are gonna just kind of create really memorable moments for your attendees. So what I did for sponsor games is on the back of everyone's badge. So this is what the badges look like. And yes, I did put man, myth, legend on my badge. Everyone else had like, you know, their handle. But on the back of everyone's badge, actually I have my wife's badge right here. So this is my wife's badge. On the back of it, everyone had a QR code like that. And okay, this is crazy. It took a lot of work, but I made custom videos for every single attendee, basically doing kind of like an audit of their social platforms. So I actually pulled up their platforms ahead of time. I gave them some advice of like how they could attract more brand opportunities. And so these videos were like anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes for every single attendee. So it took me like basically 2 days to do them all, but like, holy cow, people were so blown away. They like went back to the hotel rooms and they were watching, and like, honestly, it like blew people's minds. And so if you can do like little touches like that, this was not little, this was large, but like, if you could do little touches like that, people are going to leave the event thinking like, man, they thought of absolutely everything. So step number 8 is to craft outcome focused programming. Okay. I'm very opinionated on this. I think people are just sick and tired of going to boring conferences. Again, sitting in their seats, not paying attention, not really getting a lot of tactical stuff out of it. And so I approach this like, okay, this is basically going to be a course. You're going to come to the event, you're going to start at point A, and when you get to the very end of the event, you're going to get to point B. There's going to be some sort of transformation, some sort of outcome that you're going to accomplish by going through this event. And so I basically developed content that is delivering specific results rather than just basically passive consumption. So I have my 8-step sponsorship wheel methodology that I talk about in my book, Sponsor Magnet, sponsormagnet.com, by the way. And so I turned all 8 steps of my wheel into 8 games that creators would play to basically practice and master these concepts. So you've got the pitch game and you've got the negotiate game. And like basically the format was, so I would talk about some principle around, let's say pitching for like 5 to 10 minutes at the start of game 1. And then after that, I would basically say, okay, everyone's going out in breakout groups now. So here's your exercise. You're going to actually craft a pitch right now. Here we go. Here's the brand that you're, pretending that you're pitching. And here you have to craft the pitch in a very specific way. And then at the end, we're all going to, present them. And then then we're gonna take a quiz. I used this software called Kahoot. Basically, there was like a leaderboard. And the coolest part about it was like people got super competitive doing the Kahoot, and the winner of each game got to come on stage and shoot the money gun. And by the way, the dollar, like the money that was shot out of the money gun had my face on it. Yes, I got custom money for the money guns. I didn't expect or anticipate how stoked people would get because they wanted to win to come up on stage to do the money gun. But again, basically everyone got a score, a running score throughout all 8 games. And then at the very end of the 8th game, basically we tallied a final score, and that was the 8 finalists who advanced to what I called the sponsor tank on the last day, where you were gonna pitch like a panel of real brand partnership managers. So it was our sponsors, that was the panel. And basically one of the 8 finalists was gonna walk away with $5,000 grand prize in cash. So not just that, I'll talk about it in a little bit, what the other prizes were, but people were just like so blown away by the mechanics of the gameplay that it made it a really special experience. And by the end, I mean, some of the testimonials that we got from people was, it was mind blowing. Step number 9 is to secure sponsors earlier, way earlier than I did. Literally, there was one sponsor I was negotiating with up until like 11 p.m. the night before that we had to print all the signage that had all like the sponsors' logos and everything. That was just chaotic. But one of the reasons that I was, willing to do that is that for a long time I was thinking I was going to lose a bunch of money on the event, to be honest. And so I was like kind of bypassing my standard like best practices of like when the date that I would need to lock sponsors in. Again, just like starting the sponsorship process way far in advance, mainly because, I mean, if you watch my content or whatever, you know that like a lot of times brands are locking in these budgets way far in advance, could be 6 months up to 9 months in advance. And so I really would prioritize starting those conversations a lot earlier. Step number 10 is to invest in at least one premium touch. So what I did was we hired a barista, literally a coffee cart. It was 2 guys there, and they were etching the logo of the event with like a laser on the foam. So whether it was like a hot coffee that had like milk froth or whatever, or it was like an iced coffee, they were like zzz, 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 zzz. It was crazy. They were like etching our logo. I don't even know how they did it. So not only was it like so Instagrammable, or like, people wanted to like post it on social media, but it was just such a cool touch. Like, yes, it did. It cost a couple $1,000s, to have them there for like, 4 days of the event or whatever. But oh my gosh, it was so worth it. The coolest part, I think, is that one of the guys at the coffee company, he dressed up as a wizard. He was like, I'm gonna go. He literally, of his own accord, didn't charge us for this, bought a wizard costume on Amazon and wore it during the event. Like, oh my God, you want to find vendors like that. You want to find partners like that, because everyone just thought it was hilarious. It just set a great tone. If you could figure out something like that to do that gets people talking. So step number 11 is offer an opportunity to win something amazing. I'm of the belief that people are super competitive. And so if they know that there's something that they can compete for, or there's going to be a raffle or something, they are going to lock in. When I basically told people, I was like, look, if you want to win the $5,000 cash grand prize, you have to be here every single, game. You have to play every Kahoot. Otherwise, you're not going to be eligible. And so people were like laser focused. I'm telling you. So here's the cool part, is that people knew that there was going to be this cash grand prize because I had it on the event site. But what people didn't know is that we huddled with our sponsors and figured out, hey, what else could we throw in here to make this worth $25,000? And so this is crazy. So Kit, which was one of our sponsors, they offered to fly the grand prize winner, so airfare, accommodations, to their brand new Kit Studio Chicago location to film for 2 days. How dope is that? Amanda from Level Up Creators, another sponsor, offered this fat consulting package to the grand prize winner. Lulu, our sponsor, offered free tickets to the Content Entrepreneur Expo, their event. I offered a free ticket to next year's sponsor games. Paperform, another sponsor, offered free lifetime accounts of Paperform and PaperSign, which is like a digital contracting tool. And Bitdefender Security for Creators offered free 1-year plans to all finalists. So holy cow. And it's not just that. It's not just that. What I announced on the very first day of the event was like, hey, look guys, this isn't all that you're competing for. I am announcing my brand new Wizards Mastermind, basically where I'm going to work with the core small group of creators for the next 8 months directly, basically meeting twice monthly. And the winner, the grand prize winner, gets a free seat in the mastermind. So people went crazy. So I don't know, at least for me, I feel like adding this element to the event made it really special. So step number 12 is to build visual assets for future marketing. So I decided to hire a super high quality photographer and videographer because I wanted to get as much, photos and videos as possible. Honestly, one of the most challenging things about running this event for the very first time is I didn't have a hype video from the first year where people could be like, oh yeah, this is an event, like people go and it looks fun and they're playing games and all that. I think it's going to be so much easier for future years because we'll have the hype video, we'll have testimonials from people. I have some absolutely amazing testimonials from people. In fact, let's just play a few right now.
The networking was great. The people that were here are some of the best creators. Learned a lot just in talking to them. Met another person in my niche that does YouTube when I've been struggling at that. So excited to pick his brain.
It's been transformational. I had no idea of the value that I could bring and the different ways that I could monetize that value.
Before Sponsor Games, there was just so much ambiguity. There's just so much fuzziness. And now there's insane empowerment. I have a plan. I have the sponsor wheel, all 8 steps, and it's really clear what I need to do now.
Oh my God, those testimonials looked so good, right? Ooh, chef's kiss. But here's the thing. I'm gonna be able to use those videos, those testimonials, all those clips, not just for, future years of the event, but in my content all year long, in my YouTube videos, in my short form content, on my website, right? Showing me interacting with creators. I think honestly, it's just gonna like boost my credibility for, my personal brand and my business just through the roof. So step number 13 is to schedule on-site catering. As I mentioned, going back to the non-negotiables, I wanted the food to be amazing, but not just that. I wanted attendees to spend the least amount of money possible. And so I said, okay, we're gonna ball out on the food. And you know what other advantage comes with having on-site catering is that people don't leave and go, okay, we gotta go find lunch. And oh, look at the time. It's 2 hours, 2.5 hours. We missed the next session. We missed the next game because of the tightness of the programming structure. I couldn't afford that. And so allocating more of the budget to that, oh my God, it just accomplished so many things. And so we were able to basically, we had the food in the courtyard out there and it was like amazing food. Seriously, like we went and by the way, we like did a bunch of taste testing at different caterers in San Antonio. We selected all the, everything that we wanted on each day. And we had like a little snack break in the afternoon as well. So we had like churros on the first day. We had paletas, like popsicles on the third day, I guess. And people just absolutely loved it. But again, we came back, we rang the dinner bell, or we just basically said, okay, everyone, 5-minute warning. You got to come back in because the next game's starting. It was just like a game changer. So again, definitely balloons the cost, but I think it's worth it. So step number 14 is to incorporate active learning elements. So remember I mentioned this is an outcome focused event. And so it's not just breakout groups that you're going to have, but hey, I'm actually going to pull people on stage. So remember when I was mentioning in game 1, which was pitch, I assigned them a brand that they were going to pitch. Okay, game 2, negotiate. I'm going to bring people on stage and I'm going to pretend that I'm that brand and we're going to get into a negotiation. So I'm going to pretend that, hey, I want to hire you. And like, I literally had 2 chairs up there. And so I called someone up onto the stage and I said, this sounds really interesting, but you know what? We've only ever worked with people in an affiliate capacity. So would you be willing to accept 20% commission? And then I would like, look at them and they would be like, and then we would have this kind of playful banter back and forth. And then I would pause and we would talk about it. We would say, okay, like I love this thing that you did. Here's something that you could improve. Anyone else in the audience have any, advice about what he or she could have said differently? So we would have breaks after every game and people would be like, oh, I don't want to do any more Q&A. Can we just do more role play? Selfishly, I also wanted to do more role play because it was just so much fun. Someone actually said to me, like, I wish I would just go for like 4 hours of role play, like negotiation role play. That was so valuable. So again, if you can include these types of hands-on activities rather than passive listening, it's going to be a game changer. So step number 15 is to post content in real time. I got to give a huge shout out to my wife, April, because she was our social media manager for the event. She had, creds to my Instagram and she was posting tons of stories and tagging people. And it was just so awesome. In addition to that, at the end of each day, I would get a giant dump of content from the videographer and stuff that we had shot on our phones. And I uploaded it like in the hotel room and I sent it to my editor who is in a different time zone. And when I would wake up, there'd be like a 30-second reel that we could post. And so I think we did like 4 or 5 of them. But honestly, for future years, I would ratchet that up if I could. I would want to be posting every hour if possible. But again, that requires just like more operational load. And again, I'm like learning these types of things, but holy cow, like when people see this content that's going out and they're like, oh man, I wish I could be there. There's so much FOMO. You could be posting the wait list for future years. Something that we are going to try to do is offer, potentially virtual tickets in future years. And so, people might be able to get access, like during the event to like get the live streams or whatever it is. So again, we're trying to massage out the details for that. It was a bit too much for us to bite off in this first year event, but like there's so much value in just posting that content as quickly as possible. So step number 16 is to pitch an offer at the very end. I gotta be honest, I was so nervous about this, but I was thinking for a long time that I was going to take an absolute bath on this event, frankly. Even weeks leading up to the event, I thought I was gonna lose $20,000, $30,000, maybe more. That's why I mentioned that I was like negotiating with the sponsors furiously at the last minute there to try to not lose money. So basically I spent over $67,000 on sponsor games and I basically broke even between ticket sales and sponsors. However, as I mentioned, I launched my brand new mastermind. I talked about it on the first day, but in earnest, I definitely talked about it for longer on the final day. First of all, this was what I was fearful of, is that I've been to events where, you pay a bunch of money, the ticket, the accommodations, the flights, all that, and then you get there and then all of a sudden people are like, and now you're not really gonna get value out of this event until you buy the next thing. And it just feels like this kind of greasy, slimy, salesy thing. And I just didn't want it to feel like that. And so I went back and forth for a long time of like, how do I craft an offer that is so valuable that there's no way people are gonna get turned off by that? And honestly, at the end of the day also, because this was a transformational event, an outcome-focused event, people frankly just like wanted to keep doing this, wanted to keep working together. They wanted to keep, getting after their goals. And so I need to be able to offer a way to do that. And so it's as much about service as it is anything else. And so in the back of my mind, I knew that, okay, maybe one way in which I don't lose, tens of thousands of dollars on this is that I can invite people to join my mastermind and then that can offset some of the costs. And so that's ultimately what happened. So we basically opened the cart on the mastermind on the final day of the event. And once the mastermind wrapped, we had generated an additional $80,000 in revenue. And so I think that there's a huge amount of value in thinking not just about how you can make an event profitable with ticket sales and sponsors and all that, but is there other ways in which your attendees can work with you after the event? And step number 17 is to plan for year 2 while executing year 1. So I made a bunch of investments in reusable assets, like decor, like, a step and repeat, for example. By the way, I didn't know what a step and repeat was until Sarah told me, but it's basically those signs, those giant like canvases that have the event logo on it. People take pictures in front of and all that, selfies, etc. Or I had my, my framework, my 8-step sponsorship wheel. I got that big wheel printed up. I got my logo, my wizard logo printed up. And so those are all things that I'm going to be able to reuse and frankly made the event feel like not a first year event. I think probably the number one piece of feedback that we got from the event is that I can't believe this is the very first year y'all have done this. Because frankly, like most people would not invest in those types of things in the very first year because, they didn't know if they were going to do it again. But like, I am like dead set. Like this event is happening every year, like without a doubt. Like it was so beneficial to people. And so I just YOLO'd it basically. I was like, all right, like I'm just doing this. I'm having faith that, enough people will show up, sponsors, etc. And it all worked out. All right, I got one more bonus step for you, which is just launch it. I had so many doubts, so much uncertainty of whether I was going to be able to pull this thing off, but I willed it into existence. I have wanted this event to exist for, over a decade. And I kept waiting for someone else to do it. And frankly, I just finally decided, okay, I guess it's me. I'm the one who has to do it. And I thought I was going to lose a bunch of money. I was so incredibly stressed out. But like, if this is something that it's always been a dream of yours for your audience, for your community, I say do it. It frankly was one of the best weeks of my life. I mean, short of getting married, short of having kids, of course, but not only did I get to, spend so much time with people in my community who got so much value out of this, but huge shout out to my team, Bianca and Joe and Sarah and my wife, April. I would not have been able to pull this off without you. I'm so grateful. And by the way, if you want to join the wait list for future years of sponsor games, make sure to click on the description below. And if you're thinking about launching an event and you have a question, drop it in the comments below. I'd love to help. And I hope you enjoyed this video. And I mentioned that I pulled a bunch of the frameworks for the event from my book. So if you want to learn more about that, watch this video right here.